And then he drops out after a catastrophic debate performance. And they set Kamala Harris up to fail. That was a 3-month campaign, and she was supposed to introduce herself to the American people. No wonder people were Googling, did Joe Biden drop out? And so...
No. No. You're saying 3 months wasn't long enough?
It was too long. It was long enough.
It was long enough.
If they had a primary...
It's not that they didn't have time to introduce. They met someone and they didn't like them.
If they had had a primary, they wouldn't have picked her. And if they had, she would have been able to rough out those edges that then she basically has to start from scratch with a campaign team she didn't hire that didn't like her, right? It was his team.
Bill Maher had a couple of wokey guests on his show, Real Time with Bill Maher, and I had to absolutely shut them down. You know, things are getting bad whenever Bill Maher is forced to shut down the woke idiots out there who are just spreading these weird ass narratives. And the same narrative, by the way, that they have been calling right wingers, absolute, lunatic conspiracy theorists, straight up liars, whatever. Now they're also saying that there's nefarious things happening with this last election. I just find it very hilarious. These people are claiming that there's nefarious things happening within the election, basically claiming that Donald Trump somehow stole the election. And that's what we've been saying for the longest time. We've been calling for voting reform, election reform, all these things. There's only one side that's saying no, and it's your side. So, okay, if there's problems going on in the election, if there's weird things happening, if you feel like there's gaps for nefarious things to be happening in the elections, let's all come together and solve the problem. How about let's make people show your ID in blue states? Anyway, let's get into this clip here where Bill Maher absolutely obliterates these woke idiots for their ridiculous talking points.
I also think everything the candidates, especially the Democrats, do to get voters annoys them. The constant texting. Did you get the texts like from Tim Walz every 5 minutes and like always begging for money and knocking on doors? We've got people knocking on doors. People don't want knocking on your door. Who in this day and age wants someone knocking on? Kids don't even like it when a phone call. That's like too much of a invasion of their privacy, which they don't care about. Who might emerge as the strongest Democratic opposition leader in the next Trump era? Oh, well, that's a good question. I mean, like Adam Schiff, he won, right? Big. And
he won, but I like Wes Moore.
Wes Moore's fantastic. He's in Maryland.
Yep.
But who's going to be the one? Gavin Newsom we have here in this state. He's already like called the legislature.
Who do you guys think it's going to be? I personally think it's going to be Josh Shapiro or possibly Gavin Newsom would probably be my second most likely choice. Curious to see what you guys say in the comments. Who do you think the next Democrat presidential candidate will be in 2028?
Legislature Trump hasn't done anything yet, but I understand the.
This was the problem. There was a 2014 study that showed that Fortune 500 companies were more likely to pick a female CEO if the company was struggling, basically setting women up for the big job, but to also fail. If they did well, fine. But if they failed, like, look, we have a female CEO while failing. And that's what I feel like they did to Kamala Harris. When Biden refused to step aside and not run again, he was supposed to be that bridge. He backed off on that promise due to arrogance. And then he drops out after a catastrophic debate performance, and they set Kamala Harris up to fail. That was a 3-month campaign, and she was supposed to introduce herself to the American people. No wonder people were Googling, did Joe Biden drop out? And so...
No. You're saying 3 months wasn't long enough?
It was too long. It was long enough.
It was long enough.
If they had a primary...
It's not that they didn't have time to introduce. They met someone and didn't like them.
If they had had a primary, they wouldn't have picked her. And if they had, she would have been able to rough out those edges that then she basically has to start from scratch with a campaign team she didn't hire that didn't like her, right? It was his team.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
And so I wonder if that next Democratic person, maybe someone's not even on our radar yet, because frankly, when you look at the history of who's, there's two types: the one who waited in line, who was next in line, and then there's the one who comes out. That's Obama, that's Clinton, that's Reagan to some extent.
We had a strong bench. There's a very strong bench. There's a number of people that could be possibilities.
You're talking about people like Josh Shapiro, who could have been the vice president
Senator
and won
Connecticut,
Pennsylvania.
Senator
Blumenthal?
No.
Oh,
Chris
Murphy.
Chris Murphy.
Yeah. Yes. I'm going to side with Sarah about this one thing. If you're the sitting vice president for a president who has, throughout his entire term in office, been sitting at about somewhere between a 35 and 40% approval rating. People view the Biden administration as a failure. We can have a long discussion about whether they are right about that, about the economy, but the perceptions of the economy were that people thought inflation was too high, people thought we were on the wrong track, 75% wrong track numbers, and this huge inflation overhang. You're the sitting vice president, and you get put on elevated to the top of the ticket 107 days ahead of the election.
Okay, well, why did they do it? There was no primary. It's not like they were forced to make Kamala Harris the candidate. They could have non-democratically chosen anyone they wanted. Why would they choose someone who they knew was going to fail? If all these people are just absolute geniuses and they knew from the jump that Kamala Harris was going to fail, why didn't the people who actually call the shots in the Democratic Party know this? And they would have just been able to choose someone else who wasn't set up to fail. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I don't even know who this woman is, but she's an absolute idiot. Saying that Fortune 500 companies are more likely to choose a woman whenever a woman CEO whenever their company is about to go under. So you think that people who are on the board of these companies, who are shareholders of these companies, are like, hey guys, we're about to go absolutely bankrupt. All of us are going broke. The one last thing that I want to do before we do that is I want to make sure that we have a woman CEO. So whenever we do all lose all this money that we invested, these millions and millions of dollars in this company, at least we get to blame it on women. Am I right, guys? High five. Yeah. These people genuinely think that shit's happening. They're that delusional. What's more likely, if that statistic is true, it's more likely the fact that they've hired man, and then they're like, all right, let's switch it up. Let's see if a woman can come and save us. They want to just try something different because their company is going down. Their company is going under. Like, it's ridiculous to think that these people who have invested a ton of money, time, energy into these companies would be like, all right, guys, we're going broke. Let's hire a woman so we can at least blame it on the women on our way out. That's so ridiculous and delusional. And it just sums up everything that the woke left is about.
I think that is a very high degree of difficulty put on anybody. And I do not think she is the perfect candidate. I tend to agree with Sarah that probably in a fully litigated primary, she probably would not have been the Democratic nominee, but will never know that. But I will tell you that, there's never been anybody who's had the difficulty of that situation, elevated that late in the campaign. Why?
Democrat would have needed to run away from
Bill,
the
I don't know
Biden
if you know this, but the Vice President of the United States is basically shoved in a broom closet for 3.5 years.
I know.
You couldn't.
She was more popular in there.
Yes, well.
I mean, this idea that in a mass media age, that 107 days is not long enough to know somebody.
You are way overestimating the American people in terms of what their ability. No. You have someone like Donald Trump has become a universally known, understood, loved by some, hated by others over the course of being omnipresent for 8 years.
Okay.
Barack Obama becomes president of the United States after running for 2 years as president, runs a 50-state primary, is on television, does dozens of Democratic debates, and by the time at the end of that, most people knew who he was. Most people. Yeah. You drop somebody into the middle of the top of the ticket, 3 days out, 3 months out. You are going to have to spend a lot of time trying to introduce yourself to the country while also being in a steel cage death match with Donald Trump.
Okay, but I don't know if you ever watched this show, but I had Michael Douglas on this week.
Yeah.
At the top, we were talking about this, and he made a very good point that every other country in the world can do it in months, sometimes weeks. Why can every other country do it in that short a period of time? Are they all so much brighter than America? I don't think so.
Well,
mostly parliamentary. I mean, there's literal reasons, right? We don't have a parliamentary system.
I mean,
we also have a First Amendment. We don't make people campaign this whole time. The American people want to give them $20, and so they can afford it. I mean, small dollar donors are arguably the worst thing that's happened to our politics, as it turned out.
It's a small dollar donor didn't make $20 billion. No.
A lot of it.
Some of it, yeah.
And they represent about 2% of our country.
There's a few special PACs in there that saw $100 million plus.
Those are bad too.
I think you can believe that you could have shorter elections in America, but it's not like we don't know. In Britain, for instance, when you have a short election, it's not like you don't know who the leader of the party is for months and years before that.
But you're either the person who's Googling the day before, did Biden drop out, or in a week. Did anyone in this audience not know enough about Kamala Harris pretty much after a week to make a decision? Yeah, you just people.
How are
It's
you gonna
ridiculous.
enforce
We just get sicker of them.
What? So
How are you going to tell people
and
they
they say
can't
the
talk
same
about politics?
What?
How with free speech that I know you love?
Yeah.
How are you going to limit people's ability to run for office?
I'm not limiting. We're not making a law.
Bill, are you?
Isn't there somehow
of
ability
course.
to reduce the
Are
amount
you
of money
trying to
involved
Get
in
rid of
politics?
super PACs by making it no limits, full disclosure. 24-hour disclosure.
We could
should
fix
have
democracy in a
instant
minute. Get rid of gerrymandering. Get rid of money in politics. Get rid of the electoral college. No, none of that is. We're going to keep working with this constipated system that we live with.
Yep. Bill Maher spot on right there, man. He really cooked in this episode. I don't agree with him often, but he's correct. If you want to fix politics, fix American politics, get rid of the lobbyists, get rid of the donors, and don't allow politicians to take money, like outside of their salary. Don't allow them to take money from third parties. Simple as that. And politics is fixed, but that'll never happen. And even if it did happen, they would still probably take under the table deals, and it would still happen regardless. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you guys think about this Bill Maher episode here of Real Time with Bill Maher, where Bill Maher absolutely demolishes these two woke idiots sitting to the left of him. I don't know who they are, but they're absolute idiots. Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole Bill Maher versus his woke guest situation.